was mad at my husband, so I slept with his best friend in our house, but then he found out and, hi Redditors. I'm new on this app, but I never expected my first Reddit experience to be me sharing a story that has damaged my life in so many ways. I had an affair with my husband's childhood friend, and now I'm facing the consequences of my actions. I got my karma, and it slaps harder than anything I can describe. I've always heard that karma is a bitch. Well, now I'm beginning to understand what that saying really meant. I decided to sow more than I could reap, and now I'm reaping a whole lot of miserable deeds. Cheating is one thing, but cheating with someone's close friend is another level of wrong. And here I am, in this position, with this disgusting shame I have brought upon myself. Temptation is something that not even the strongest of hearts can resist. It takes a lot of self-discipline to not give in to something that's literally right in front of you. I couldn't resist the temptation that was right in front of me, and that led me to committing a taboo that I regret with all my heart. My story is just not any normal story. It did not just happen overnight. I didn't just cheat overnight. It's something that was months or even years in the making. Before I go on, let me tell you all a little background story about me and my husband. My name is Christina, and I'm a 29-year-old makeup artist. I've been married to my husband, Andrew, a 31-year-old accountant for over 3 years now. I met Andrew when his sister booked me for a makeup session. She came to New York to visit Andrew for some time before going on. Her birthday was in the same week, so she decided to book a makeup artist for her birthday shoot. I was recommended to her, and that's how I got the gig. Andrew was not in the house all day, but only got back when I was already done with the makeup. He greeted me casually before going upstairs. I was really shy when I saw him because Andrew is very attractive. Before I continue the story, let it be known that I also met Andrew's childhood friend when I came to do his sister's makeup. But that story is coming up ahead. I'm the type of woman that likes men who do not flaunt their interest for me openly. I like men that act like they are uninterested. Yes, Redditors, I know that sounds extremely weird, but it's true. That's the kind of person I am. That day, when I noticed how casual Andrew was when he greeted me, I took a liking to him. He looked extremely tired and went into his room immediately. His sister is quite a jovial person, and she was the one who told me how hard her brother works. She told me he gets back from work late sometimes and ends up tired. But on that particular day, Andrew got back home at 5 p.m., and that's when I was able to see him. I was already done with the makeup, and the photographer was already at the house so he could take the pictures. I did not have any business there again and was about to leave, but when I saw Andrew, I knew I was done for. Yes, I liked him the very first moment I saw him. I don't mean love at first sight, lol. It was more like a silly attraction that came at the spur of the moment. Even now that I think about it, I can't deny the fact that my husband is really attractive. I'm not surprised that I got attracted to him on the very first day I saw him. So, my fellow Redditors, that attraction led me into making a very stupid decision. I asked his sister if I could stay behind just to see how the pictures came out and to help her retouch the makeup when necessary. Yes, I was that desperate to get Andrew's attention. The surprising thing is that Andrew literally took forever to come out that day. The photographer was almost done with the pictures before I spotted Andrew coming out of the house. Imagine waiting hours just to see someone, and when they're finally there, standing right before you, your sense of reasoning disappears. I could not even walk towards him and start a conversation. It was his sister who took it upon herself to ask me if I fancied her brother. I tried to talk my way out of it, but eventually, I gave in and decided to tell her the truth. She was excited at the prospect of me liking him, but she was also a little bit sorry for me. When I asked her why she was sorry, she told me that Andrew already had a girlfriend and they were pretty serious. My fellow Redditors, I felt really heartbroken when she told me that. I know it sounds weird to be heartbroken when you have not even dated this person, but it wasn't easy. Have you ever had a crush who was dating someone else? It's a very horrible feeling. My main reason for feeling bad was that I'd wasted hours of work waiting for him so I could start a conversation, only to be told that he had a serious girlfriend. The makeup artist in me already calculated how much money I could have made during the time I spent daydreaming about someone I met barely hours before that time. Since I no longer had a reason to stay, I grabbed my makeup items and proceeded to leave the house. Andrew's sister did something that literally shook me in many ways. She called her brother at the lady minute and asked him to come see me off. Yes, she did that. I was so embarrassed that I tried to give her a hint that I was not interested in doing that. She did not listen to me at all. Andrew looked tired, but he still walked towards us with a smile on his face. He commented on my makeup skills and bid me farewell. Before he went back to the house, his sister made a comment about me having a crush on him. I swear, Redditors, I felt like letting the ground swallow me. At first, Andrew thought his sister was just being playful, but when he noticed my expressions, he realized she was telling the truth. Everything felt too awkward, and I did not want to be in that situation. So I quickly left and made my way back home. 3 months later, I got a text from Andrew's sister. Apparently, she was back in New York and needed another makeup tutorial. That's how I ended up meeting Andrew's childhood friend, Collins. When I was busy with Andrew's sister's makeup, Collins randomly came to the house. He was friends with Andrew's sister. Well, I'll call her by her name from now on. Her name is Linda. So Collins came over while I was busy with Linda's makeup. He was friendly and even offered to assist me with the brushes and makeup items I needed while I was doing the makeup. The three of us managed to chat during the course of the makeup, and I was glad that the work environment was conducive and fun. At some point during the makeup, Collins asked for my phone number. He insisted that he just wanted to find more clients for me. I didn't mind and gave my phone number to him. I already forgot about the crush I had on Andrew because I honestly did not feel like he was someone I was ever going to see again. It was only a coincidence that his sister randomly asked me to be her makeup artist again. Well, I was very wrong because I saw Andrew again. He came back from work to get something before going back. My fellow Redditors, I really felt like the universe wanted us to meet again. But unfortunately for me, Andrew was in a rush. He went back to work immediately. Linda asked me if I still had feelings for him, and I brushed it off. I was not ready to go to that party. To be honest, I felt like a high school girl who was having a fling with someone that didn't even know her. The fact that he had a girlfriend was a huge turnoff because I was not ready to be that girl that tried to steal someone else's boyfriend. Well, my fellow Redditors, I did end up being that girl at the end of the day. 2 days after doing Linda's makeup, I got a call from Collins. He asked us to meet up for coffee, and I agreed. Collins was a nice guy, but he was not the man whose attention I wanted to get. But I didn't mind having a harmless coffee with him. After 3 weeks of randomly meeting up for coffee, Collins told me he had feelings for me. Okay, for someone who wanted to get the attention of his childhood best friend, I was not really excited. Andrea was the one I liked. But unfortunately, he was in a relationship. Collins seemed nice and all, but I found it weird to date the best friend of a guy I had feelings for. It was never going to end well, so I lied to Collins and told him I was not ready to be in a serious relationship. Prior to my conversation with Collins, Linda already told me Collins was a flirt, and I shouldn't take him seriously. I did not believe her until Collins told me we could just hook up and have a fling. I was not up for it, so I told him so. I don't want this to get too long, so I'll try to just point out the main details. Linda found a job in New York and started living with Andrew temporarily till she was able to get her own place. Linda and I became friends, so she invited me to Collins' house often. Sometimes I'd practice new makeup trends on her face and we'd experiment it together. Linda and I became quite close, and it was a friendship I didn't see coming. I know you all are where Collins was during all this time. Collins was still in a relationship, and his girlfriend, Sandra, even came to the house many times. Yes, I know what you all are thinking. It did hurt me to see the guy I liked with his girlfriend, but there was nothing I could do. Months flew by, and Kinda told me Collins and Sandra took a break in their relationship. I don't really know the details of what happened, but I heard that Sandra had been transferred to work in another state. Collins was not ready for a long-distance relationship, so they decided to take a break and see how things went. Long story short, I decided to use that opportunity to get Andrew's attention. I know that sounds desperate and awkward, but I liked him a lot and wanted to date him. We started chatting once in a while anytime I visited Linda, and that's how our friendship started. But it was just a friendship. There was nothing more to it. But one day, Linda invited me to the house to help her pack, because she already found an apartment to move into. I knew that would be my last excuse to see Andrew, so I decided to speak to him. I stayed overnight in their house because we packed till it was very late. Linda asked me to stay over so I could follow her to her new apartment. That night, I met Andrew in the living room and we started chatting randomly. He was quite sad that his sister was going to move out since he's gotten used to being around. The three of us drank a lot that night and watched movies. Linda decided to go to sleep early since she still had to move out. My fellow Redditors, that's how I was left in the living room with Andrew. I don't know if it was the alcohol we took or the romantic movies we watched, but we ended up sleeping together that night. When I woke up the next morning, I was afraid he'd regret everything and possibly tell me it was a mistake, but that wasn't the case. Oh my God, this got longer than I expected, Redditors. The main story is not even here yet. I just wanted you all to understand the dynamic that started between Collins, Andre, and I. Talking about Collins, if you're wondering where he was during all these, I'll tell you. A few months before Linda moved out, Collins lost his father and went back to his hometown. He told us it was really tough on his family since his mother was also dead. He had 4 siblings to take care of, so he decided to stay in his hometown for a while to monitor them and be the father figure. Andrew and I started dating weeks after our intimate moment in his house. A part of me was really scared he'd get back with his girlfriend, but I decided to finally ask him if they were ever going to get back together. He told me he was not getting back with Sandra because he was not ready for a long-distance relationship. Linda was really happy I was dating Andrew because she believed I genuinely liked him a lot. The relationship between Andrew and Collins was still quite strong despite the distance. Andrew and Collins called each other almost every week, and Collins even tried his best to send Andrew money to support him sometimes. Collins and I lost contact during that period, and it was mostly my fault. I blocked him even before he went to his father's burial because I did not want to complicate things. He'd approached me many times and I always said no. I did not want to keep hurting him, so I decided to cut all communication with him. Collins was not aware that Andrew and I were in a relationship at all. Maybe Andrew did not feel the need to tell him since he was not aware of Collins's feelings for me. Andrea was never really home when Collins used to flirt with me, so he was oblivious to our dynamic. I also took Linda's words seriously and did not take Collins seriously because I believed he was just a flirt. Andrew and I dated for 2 more years before he proposed to me. I said yes instantly, and that's how we got married. I'm going to say this with all my heart. I love my husband very much. My fellow Redditors, I love Andrew with all my heart. Even from the first day I saw him, I knew that I had strong feelings for that man. Getting married to him was the happiest moment of my whole life. Even my family believed that there was no better match for me. His family was very welcoming and they made me feel at home. A few weeks before the wedding, Andrew told Collins he was getting married to the girl he's been dating for over 3 years. Collins knew Andrew was in a relationship, but he did not know it was me. Maybe Andrew did not mention my name, or maybe Collins just decided not to think about it. I don't know which one it is, because when Collins came back to New York for the wedding 2 weeks early, he was shocked to see that I was the one getting married to Andrew. Collins pulled me to the side and poured out his heart. He accused me of trying to use his childhood best friend to make him jealous. Yes, he said that. I had to make it clear to Collins that I'd always liked Andrew from the very first day I saw him. I had to make him understand that even if Andrew was not his best friend, I'd still have dated him. Collins did not seem to get my explanation at all. He looked like he could snap my neck in half. My fellow Redditors, that really made me scared. I did not want Collins to end up ruining my relationship with Andrew, so I decided to go tell Linda what had transpired. She called Collins and explained everything to him. She even explained how I'd told her I had a crush on Andrew since the very first day I saw him. Collins finally decided to let it go and told us he was just overacting. I didn't want to count in his words, so I told Andrew everything. Andrew seemed upset at first because of Collins' behavior, but they had a bro talk about it and everything was cleared. Collins assured Andrew that he was just joking and wanted to make me sweat just for fun. We laughed it off and moved on. We had a stress-free marriage 2 weeks later. When I moved into Andrew's house after the wedding, our life as a married couple began. It was really a nice experience, and it felt good to call someone your husband confidently. It felt good to own the right to somebody as much as they owned rights to you. I fell in love with the way he treated me and the way our marriage had mutual respect for each other. I continued my job as a makeup artist, and I was really busy. Andrew was also busy with work, but we'd find time once in a while to go on dates and go on trips. Everything was literally perfect, and I did not think that there'd ever be a reason for me to come to Reddit and write about how my marriage has taken a drastic turn because of me. Yes, me. There's no one more responsible than me. Sure, other people played a part in it, but the ball was always in my court. I'm the one who really had the final say to decide if I wanted to fall for the temptation that brought itself. I got carried away, and now I've broken everything Andrew and I worked hard to build. I cheated. I cheated on my husband. I never thought I'd ever cheat on him. I never thought things would get to this point, and now I regret everything that let get in the way of me and my husband. If you're guessing that Collins had a hand in it, you're right. I bet you never guessed that Sandra, his ex-girlfriend, would have a hand in it too, right? Well, Sandra is also very much involved in this whole fiasco. As much as everyone has a hand in it, I'm the one to blame. Does Andrew have a hand in it? I don't really know. But he's not entirely innocent. One day I got the shock of my life when Linda invited me to her apartment urgently. Many times before then, Linda had always invited me to come to her apartment for one or two things. Our friendship was still the same, and we never let anything water it down. So, on this fateful day, Linda said I had to come urgently. Andrew was at work, so I dressed up and went to her place. Linda was practically pacing around the room when I came. I was really surprised to see her acting that way, so I asked her what the problem was. My fellow Redditors Linda told me that an unexpected guest was back in New York. That unexpected guest is Sandra. In any normal relationship, your husband's ex-girlfriend shouldn't bother you that much. But in my case, it bothered me a lot. The fact that Sandra and Andrew were in a very serious relationship and only broke up because of work was enough reason to make me worried. They didn't break up because they fell out of love or anything like that. They broke up because they couldn't manage to have a long-distance relationship. I was very scared. I was terrified of the prospect of Sandra trying to get back together with him. There was every possibility that she would try to make things work, and I knew it. I knew that if she wanted him, the fact that he was married was not going to stop her. Linda tried to calm me down, but I was too far gone in my head to think straight. I honestly thought that my marriage was over, but Linda made me understand that I was overacting. She told me not to think too much about it, and that the only reason she felt like letting me know was so I would not overreact when I found out later. We all know some things are easier said than done, and in my situation, it was the same thing. I had a lot that was at stake, so I decided to go back and get myself together. That day, I really found it hard to sleep. I really wanted to know if Andrew was aware that Sandra was back in New York. My fellow Redditors, you had to see how uneasy I was that night. It was so bad that even Andrew noticed that I was not my usual self. He asked me if everything was fine, and I told him I just had something on my mind, and it was not a big deal. Andrew did not buy my excuse. He was so tired from a hectic workday, but he insisted I told him what was bothering me before I went to bed. When I finally told him Sandra was back in New York, he was not surprised. Yes, Redditors, Andrew seemed to have been aware of Sandra's arrival. If I was worried before, the knowledge of that just made me more worried. I asked him how he knew, and he told me she reached out to him recently and asked them to meet for coffee. Listen to me, guys. I don't know if I might come across as paranoid or a drama queen, but I did not like what he said at all. Any woman would be angry if she found out her husband's ex-girlfriend asked him to meet her for coffee. But in my situation, I was paranoid. I knew their history, and I was aware of the fact that they never really had real relationship problems. I'm not one to bottle things in, so I told my husband right there, and then that I didn't want him to go meet Sandra. He asked why, and I told him everything I had in my mind. We never really kept secrets from each other before, so I felt comfortable telling him I was not happy about Sandra's arrival. Like all men in that situation act, he sweet-talked me into believing that there was nothing going on between him and Sandra. He told me she was still his friend, and all he wanted to do was marry her and catch up. There was nothing I could say again because I didn't want to come across as the overprotective wife. He had a point. He knew her even before he met me, and there were still friends. I made him promise me that he'd be back in less than an hour, and he did. I'll be lying if I said I was not still worried. Well, they had coffee 1 week later and we moved on with our lives. But I still had a feeling that Sandra was trying to reach out to Andrew. I knew this because of the sudden calls Andrew was getting frequently. He'd silence his phone or cut the call, but I knew there had to be something fishy going on. I managed to lie with that suspicious feeling for 3 more months before something unexpected happened. Collins came back to New York with his siblings. He'd earned enough money in his hometown for all those years, so he decided to come back to New York with 2 of his siblings. The rest were either in college or working. I did not expect Collins to return at all. It honestly came as a shock to me. At that point, I kind of felt like all the problems in my past were returning. Of course, I never had a relationship with Collins. We were just friends, and he asked me out, but I refused. We'd moved past that, and he even attended my wedding. There was nothing to worry about, but I didn't like everything that was happening at all. I already hated the fact that Sandra was trying to reach out to my husband. I was certain of this because I saw her missed calls on his phone. From the things I saw, it seemed like Andrew had been ignoring all her advances, but she was still trying. I knew that it was only a matter of time before he gave in or she got crazier. I spoke to Linda about my concerns and she assured me that Andrew was never going to cheat on me. I believed her, and so I tried to calm down. Collins became a thorn in my flesh all of a sudden. He was my husband's best friend. Childhood friend for that matter, so it made sense that he started visiting our house frequently. First, he brought his siblings along and tried to tell us how he was being a wonderful father figure. Andrew and Collins had a very strong friendship, so Andrew did not seem to mind Collins' regular visits. I'm sure you all have read about those ladies that are accused of coming in between their husband's relationship with his friends and relatives. I didn't want to be that wife, and I didn't want to be accused of doing something like that. That's why I tried my honest best not to let Andrew know that I was uncomfortable with Collins' visits. I did not want to suddenly tell my husband that I didn't want his best friend at our house anymore. Collins took my silence for approval. He started coming more frequently and eating around the house. Yes, he practically took anything he wanted from the refrigerator without asking me. Sure, he didn't need to. I'm just his friend's wife. I'm sure he did all those things just to get on my nerves and make me do something that will cause a rift between my husband and I. All I wanted to do was handle everything in an amicable manner. I tried to be mature and reasonable in everything I did. One day, I decided to have a conversation with my husband. I told him everything Collins was up to, and I told him I didn't like his behavior at all. My husband gave me permission to speak to him and sort things out. He told me he didn't want to be involved in our disagreements. To be honest, I was really upset that my husband said that to me. He also said he didn't want to pick a side. Who the fuck was talking about picking sides? My fellow Redditors, all I wanted him to do was tell his friend to limit the way he came to the house and acted all high and mighty. But it seemed like I was asking him to do too much, so I took matters into my own hands. I had an argument with Andrew over the issue, but I decided to let it go because I knew that was Colin's plan all along. It was just a pity that my husband wasn't ready to see that his childhood best friend was trying his very best to ruin his marriage. One day, I decided to speak to Collins. I told him I disliked the way he came to the house frequently and messed with the things in the kitchen without my permission. Collins actually got very angry and left the house. That was not my intention, so I told my husband what happened and asked him to call Collins on my behalf. Collins' phone number was STI blocked on my phone, and I did not plan on unblocking him. After Andrew got off the phone with Collins, he got angry and told me not to make Collins feel unwelcome in our home anymore. Apparently, Collins made up stories about me to Andrew. I tried explaining myself, but Andrew just told me not to bring up the subject. My fellow Redditors, I was very angry. It felt like my husband was only ready to take Collins' side, so I decided to stop caring about Collins' presence. I let him go whatever he wanted. After all, the real owner of the house did not mind. I did not speak to Linda about what was going on because I was already tired of disturbing her after every little misunderstanding between my husband and I. I wanted to handle things independently without disturbing her. At that point, I'd already forgotten all about Sandra and her presence in New York. I didn't even think about her or the fact that she was still trying to contact Andrew. But one day, I just couldn't understand what transpired. That was the same day I cheated on my husband with Collins. I still regret every single thing that transpired that day, but all I can do now is wallow in self-pity. It was a rainy day. It had rained from the previous night nonstop. Andrew only managed to get to work safely when the rain stopped for some time. After he left for work, Collins showed up suddenly. Apparently, he forgot his work file at our place. Yes, that's how frequent he showed up. He was almost like a tenant at our place. After getting the work file, he asked if he could stay for brunch. Of course, I knew that was just his way of trapping me. If I refused, he'd make up stories to tell Andrew. I served him brunch, and while he was eating, it started raining again. It was another heavy rain, and it didn't look like it planned to stop. Collins could not go because it was not good weather to drive in. I was really worried about the possibility of Collins not making it home early that day because the rain was really heavy. I didn't want him to stay out late. I was worried for his safety, and I was also worried that Sandra might try something suspicious. A part of me felt like I was exaggerating, but I had to be certain. So, my fellow Redditors, I called my husband when it was almost 5 p.m. and he told me it was impossible to drive in the weather. He said he'd come home late. I got really worried because even Collins couldn't leave. I decided to calm my nerves and just go to my room. I took a hot bath before changing into my pajamas. I was hungry, and I also knew that Collins was hungry too. I did not cook anything in the afternoon and just munched on snacks. I did not expect him to stay for that long. After making dinner and offering it to him, I stayed in the living room to watch a movie. I wanted to be around when my husband came back, and I didn't want to fall asleep before he came. I was also not comfortable with living with Collins in the house with my husband while I was in my room. I did not trust him not to go looking into our things. Collins also stayed in the living room and watched the movie with me. It was quiet at first, and we did not attempt to start any conversation. But after some time, Collins started asking me about my makeup business. That's where the conversion began, my fellow Redditors. We spoke about life and random things. After some minutes into the second movie, Collins came to sit beside me on the couch. Our shoulders were practically touching. I was not uncomfortable in that position, so I moved away and sat on another couch. He laughed at my reaction and sat next to me again. Collins gave me no space to think. He told me I looked beautiful and that he still misses me. He started whispering non-coherent words, and I honestly felt like he was drunk. But then again, I did not see him drinking. I pushed him away and warned him to stop, or else I'd call my husband and tell him everything. I did not expect Collins to laugh in my face when I mentioned calling my husband. He called me a fool and told me I was dumb to think that Collins had been faithful to me. I called his rants bullshit and tried moving upstairs. I knew his words were getting to me and I didn't want him to brainwash me. But, fellow Redditors, I ended up being brainwashed. Collins asked me if I was aware that Sandra was back in New York. That caught my attention, and in a bid to show him Andrew and I didn't hide anything from each other, I told him I was aware. He took out his phone and showed me pictures of Sandra standing in front of Andrew's workplace. According to Collins, Sandra had been trying to reach out to Andrew. He told me she still wanted him back, and she'd showed up to his workplace many times. I might not have wanted to believe Collins, but pictures didn't lie, and the evidence was right in front of me. Collins also told me that Sandra was at Andrew's workplace that moment, and they were probably together getting intimate. I was shocked, but I refused to believe it, and brought out my phone to call Andrew. Andrew did not pick up after 2 more calls. Collins laughed again and told me he was telling me the truth. He even showed me a picture of Andrew and Sandra meeting up for lunch. I got brainwashed, and I was stupid enough to believe everything he said. I started crying uncontrollably because I thought Andrew was cheating on me. Collins decided to comfort me by hugging me. That's how he started touching me, and I foolishly got carried away. I thought I was cheating back and paying Andrew back for lying to me. I ended up sleeping with Collins, and we fell asleep on the couch. I woke up that same night to a bucket of cold water being poured on me. My fellow Redditors, my husband stood there and watched me with disgust in his eyes. The rain had stopped, and he came home only to see me naked on the couch with his best friend. At first I felt guilty, and then I accused him of cheating first. I told him everything Collins told me. My fellow Redditors, my husband slapped me so hard that I fell on the floor. He almost killed Collins right there in the living room. Apparently, Collins lied to me. All the pictures he showed me of Sandra standing in front of Andrew's office were true, but Andrew never met up with her intentionally. The picture of both of them having lunch was taken before I met him. I was so paranoid and brainwashed that I was not ready to see the real truth. After giving Colin several sounds, Andrew threw him out of the house. The words Andrew said that night still hurt me till this day. He was angry, disappointed, and enraged. He sent me out of the house in the middle of the night with only my pajamas. I had nowhere to go. I went to Linda's place that same night, even though she was terrified to see me in my horrible state. After telling her everything, Linda was furious. She told me she was disappointed in me for not listening to her warnings. She couldn't even look at me. She only allowed me to stay at her place for 2 days before sending me out. According to her, she could not go against her brother for me. Only my parents took me in, even though they still look at me with disappointment in their eyes. I lived miserably for 2 months. I tried reaching out to Andrew and visiting him, but he warned the gatekeeper never to let me in, and he blocked my number. Just last month, I heard from my friend that Andrew and Sandra are now back together. I almost ended my life when I heard the news. I've lost everything and I'm the only one to blame. Not even Linda wants to listen to me. Andrew sent me the divorce papers 2 weeks ago and I'm still yet to sign it. I plan on signing it soon because all hope is lost. I no longer have a marriage and I've lost my good friend. I betrayed my husband by sleeping with his childhood friend. Even though I was made to believe he cheated, 2 wrongs don't make a right, and I should have never cheated back as a way of revenge. At the end of the day, he didn't really cheat. It was all a trap. Maybe I was meant to learn my lesson the hard way. I'm to blame for everything. I regret cheating in my husband. I ruined everything with my own hands. Thank you for reading my story, Reddit. At least I got a little bit of closure. Till next time. Hopefully I have something to celebrate. Though, I highly doubt it. Found out. My married husband cheated on me right before 10-year anniversary trip. Hey Redditors. This is going to be different from the previous posts that I had posted regarding my perfect, beautiful life that I had been living. This is a revelation of the brutal truth about how my husband had been cheating on me and how I came to find the truth. Let's roll. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Arya. I am 35 and married to Steven, who is 40. We had a beautiful marriage up until last week. I know I have been hyping about my 10-year anniversary for a couple of weeks now. But things took a drastic turn last week when I found out that my husband had been cheating on me. I am here to tell my story and am open for any advice or opinion you guys have for me. Let me give you a background about me and Steven for you to decide better. Steven and I met each other by accident. It was a hilarious encounter. I was on my way to meet a potential suitor for myself and he was here to interview someone for the post of a personal assistant. I made my way inside the cafe and without any second guessing walked towards his table and seated myself. He was a little amused by my non-causal behavior. We introduced ourselves and he started asking me questions about my work experience. I thought that it was quite a boring person that I was hooked up for. As the conversation progressed, I asked him about his hobbies, which left him confused. He quickly glanced at his phone and there it was. He saw a message that the person he was supposed to be interviewing was running late. He asked me if I was here for the interview and I was like, no way. What interview? I am here to meet a person who could possibly be my potential husband. I really thought he was either drunk or high, so it did not make any sense. We had a hearty laugh about it. Steven gave me his business card, and I left trying to look for the guy I was supposed to meet. Days passed, and I almost forgot about my encounter with Steven. As I was rummaging through my bag, I saw his card and had a sudden rush of sending him a text. It was just a harmless text, right? Plus, it did not matter much. He would always be busy with work and might not even remember our stupid mix-up. I decided to just send it anyway. I then started focusing on my work. I was working as an organizer and hated my boss. He made me do even the very basic stuff like reading out his personal emails by me. I mean, I have had enough and wanted out. A text to a stranger would be a good distraction from my boring and uneventful life. Maybe, just maybe, he would respond and we could reconnect. As I continued to work, the thought of escaping this suffocating environment grew stronger in my mind. I yearned for a new beginning, away from the clutches of my controlling boss. I got up on the weekend, tired from the entire week's hectic schedule. I did not have many plans for the day, so I lazily moved my body out of the bed towards the washroom with my phone in my hand. My eyes were still pretty shut as I checked my notifications. There was a message from an unknown number. I dismissed it, thinking of it as spam. I went about my day, scrolling through social media and Netflix to chill. As I was drinking my coffee, I realized what that text was and who it could have been from. I quickly rushed to my inbox to read the message. Lo and behold, it was from Stephen. He not only did reply, but also remembered our unplanned encounter. He replied that he had been waiting for me to text him, as he did not take down my number and I took too long to get in touch with him. Stephen's message gave me butterflies in my stomach, as he suggested meeting up again soon. I couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and excitement, knowing that our connection was mutual and that there was potential for something more. I was thinking of how to reply to meeting him. Should I go ahead with it? I mean, I don't know who he exactly is, and was it safe to meet a stranger? I remembered that I had his card, so I Googled him to find out more about him. His profile was impressive. He was a second-generation CEO of his father's business. The fact that he could have been a serial killer could now be eliminated. I agreed to meet him on Sunday for lunch. I left it to him to choose the time and place, as I was free anyway. We met at a Michelin star restaurant as suggested by Stephen. I was impressed by his choice of restaurant and the food that he had pre-ordered for us. During our dinner, we indulged in exquisite dishes prepared by the renowned chef, and the ambiance was truly enchanting. As the evening progressed, we discovered shared interests and engaging conversations that left us eager to plan our next get-together. We had a wonderful time and decided to catch up again sometime soon. We constantly started texting each other throughout the day. He kept complaining about his incompetent personal assistant, and I kept bashing my boss, who was so unrealistic in his expectations. Our shared frustrations with work created a bond between us, as we sympathized with each other's professional challenges. It felt refreshing to have someone who understood the daily struggles we faced. As our conversations continued, we realized that our connection extended beyond just venting about work, and we grew even more excited to see each other again. We met one day, and Stephen suggested that why don't I take up the role of his personal assistant, since I am from the same background, plus I hate my boss. We had been talking for 3 months and hadn't realized it for so long. I was hesitant at first, but Stephen's offer seemed like a great opportunity to escape my current work situation and explore a new career path. Plus, our shared interests made it easier for us to understand each other's perspectives and work well together. Little did I know that this decision would not only change my job, but also strengthen our friendship and even lead to something more. I started working for him, and it was quite refreshing. He was competent, unlike my old boss, who did not even know how to use basic machines. Spending time with each other at work led to us knowing more and more about each other. As we continued to work closely, our bond grew stronger, and we discovered a deep connection beyond just friendship. Our conversation shifted from work-related topics to personal interests, dreams, and aspirations. This newfound closeness sparked feelings of attraction, and soon enough, our relationship blossomed into something more romantic. 1 year after working for Stephen as his personal assistant, he asked me to move in with him. I agreed on one condition, that we would get married after 6 months if things went well. He instantly agreed to it, and we started living together. We had a very comfortable situation at home with no issues. He loved that I cooked for him every morning, even though we would be busy getting ready for work. He promised me that if we marry, we would always have breakfast together. This brought a smile to my face, and I started imagining my future with him. As time went on, our bond grew stronger, and I found myself falling deeper in love with Stephen. We shared countless laughter-filled moments and supported each other through the ups and downs of life. It became clear to me that our relationship was built on a solid foundation of trust and mutual respect. I couldn't help but feel excited about the possibility of spending the rest of my life with Stephen. We got married as we had decided. Stephen was against having kids, and I did not have much of a problem with it. He said that we should enjoy life to the fullest with fewer complications. Kids took up a lot of time, and it would hamper our frequent trips for newer experiences. I could not disagree with this logic, so I agreed to it. Stephen believed that not having children would allow us to focus on our careers and personal growth, as well as maintain a sense of freedom and spontaneity in our lives. He emphasized the importance of nurturing our relationship and pursuing our individual passions without the added responsibilities of raising a family. Ultimately, we both saw eye to eye on this matter and felt confident in our decision. A few months after we were married, I started looking for another personal assistant for Stephen, as it was getting quite difficult for us to stay focused on work without being distracted. It was difficult to make Stefan agree to it, as he was so used to me organizing things for him. After so much discussion and persuasion, Stefan finally agreed to hire a personal assistant. We conducted interviews and found someone who was highly efficient and capable of handling his workload effectively. Finally, Stephen had a new assistant on board. I started focusing on organizing our weekly house parties, trips, and events. We both kind of settled in our new lives and routines where we could not only spend time with each other, but also help each other with necessary tasks and responsibilities. Stephen's personal assistant proved to be a valuable addition to our team, as she not only lightened his workload, but also brought fresh ideas and perspectives to the table. With her assistance, we were able to streamline our daily operations and make more time for leisure activities together. However, as years went by, I had an urge to have a kid. When I saw my friends talking about their kids, I felt a sense of longing and a desire to experience the joys and challenges of parenthood. The thought of nurturing a child and watching them grow into their own unique individual filled me with a deep sense of fulfillment and purpose. I brought it up a few times in front of Stephen, which led to frictions in our relationship. Stephen, on the other hand, was not ready for the responsibilities and sacrifices that come with raising a child. He had different priorities and goals in life, which caused tension between us. From the past 5 years, I have been trying different ways to convince Stephen to somehow agree to having one kid. Maybe this could help us have a different perspective of life. I have presented numerous logical arguments, emphasizing the joy and fulfillment that raising a child can bring to our lives. Additionally, I have shared heartwarming stories of friends and family who have experienced the profound love and growth that comes with parenthood. Despite my efforts, Stephen remains hesitant, concerned about the added responsibilities and potential sacrifices. I did not enjoy this mundane life that we were living in anymore. Stephen would be away for business, and the times that I would follow him, I would be meeting friends and shopping for things that I didn't actually need or use. I longed for excitement and adventure, craving a life filled with spontaneity and new experiences. The repetitive routine was suffocating my spirit, leaving me yearning for something more meaningful and fulfilling. I shared my concerns with Stephen, who said that I was just overreacting to it. I need to get the desire of having a kid out of my head, as this was something we had agreed to way before we got married. I couldn't bring it up again and again and ruin our relationship, which had been going well so far. I couldn't shake off the feeling that my desires and concerns were being dismissed. It was disheartening to hear Stephen brush off my genuine worries as mere overreactions. Though I felt dejected by Stephen's dismissal of my desires, I did not want to ruin our relationship and create unnecessary tension between us. So I decided that I should put a stop on trying to make Stephen agree to have a kid. Life went on as usual for us. I and Stephen were cruising places for his business trips, having parties at our house and meeting new people. Very soon, we will be celebrating our 10 years anniversary. I could not believe that we had been married for almost 10 whole years. It felt surreal. Stephen and I decided that we would want to make it a grand event. We wanted to invite our close friends and family to celebrate with us. We began brainstorming ideas for the anniversary celebration, considering extravagant venues and unique themes. We wanted the celebration to reflect our journey together and the love we shared over the past decade. Additionally, we began compiling a guest list, ensuring that all our loved ones would be present to make this milestone even more special. I had taken up the responsibility of handling everything, as he was caught up with his business ventures. Stephen had trust in me that I would do everything necessary to make sure that this was well planned and executed. So I was quite busy from the past few months preparing for the anniversary. I was actually thrilled about our 10-year anniversary. I always wanted it to be a big, fat celebration. I had been planning and organizing everything meticulously, from the venue to the guest list, ensuring that every detail was perfect. The anticipation and excitement grew with each passing day, as I couldn't wait to share this special milestone with our loved ones and create unforgettable memories together. This brought back old memories when I was working as a personal assistant. The amount of satisfaction and the rush of hormones were exhilarating. I was so engrossed in making this event happen that I neglected spending time with Stephen. Stephen was busy with his own work as usual. I decided to take a break from the preparations and spend some time with Stephen. I had placed all the orders for the arrangements, and there was nothing much I could do till things were delivered. I wanted to know how things are going with Stephen at the work front. That is when I started noticing that Stephen had been distancing himself from all the preparations. I understand that I get a little too involved in all these things as I want everything to be perfect. I can be a pain at times, but I was doing it for us. He could show some appreciation and interest in it. However, I couldn't help but feel hurt and unappreciated when Stephen continuously showed disinterest and detachment. I know that I had assured him that I would handle everything, but at least he could be a little more excited about the event. It made me question if he truly valued our relationship and the effort I put into making our shared experiences special. I did find it a bit strange that Stephen was not even questioning the progress of how things were going. He generally would ask me if I needed any help with any stuff. I kept putting it off, convincing myself that there is nothing wrong between us. It could just be that Stephen was busy with handling things at work for the time we would be away. However, deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Our conversations had become less frequent, and his responses seemed distant. Despite my attempts to rationalize it, doubts started to creep in about the state of our relationship. I was also concerned about his health due to his erratic schedules. He was staying out late too often and coming home very late, or in the early hours of the morning. We had a rule to at least have breakfast together, if not all the meals. I noticed that Stephen was not respecting this one rule that we had always maintained in our relationship. When I asked him about it, he just said that he had been quite busy with work lately and would definitely make up for it. I was not completely convinced, but I decided to give him some time to make things work. However, as time went on, Stephen's behavior did not change. He continued to prioritize work over our relationship and consistently broke our breakfast rule. This made me question if his busy schedule was truly the reason for his disregard of our rule. I was clearing out his wardrobe so that I could make room for the new clothes and other gifts that I had secretly planned for him for our anniversary. I found a piece of paper in one of his jackets. I took it out, and it was a hotel invoice. I tried desperately to look at the dates on it, but it had been torn. I was not aware of any hotel visits that Stephen had recently. He usually tells me everything about his whereabouts, and this was never mentioned in any of our conversations. I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as I wondered why Stephen would keep a torn hotel invoice hidden in his jacket. The mystery deepened, leaving me with unanswered questions about his secret hotel visit and what Stephen was hiding from me. I was contemplating asking Stephen about it, but knowing him, I knew he was quick to cook up stories. I put it back in his jacket without letting him know that I found it and am suspicious about it. I did not want to, but I tried to keep an eye on everything that was going on in Stephen's life. Though deep down I was hoping that I might be wrong and just overreacting to all of this. Maybe it was a surprise that he was planning, and that is the reason he never told me about it. I started checking his phone when he was in the washroom to look for any signs of suspicion or deceit. However, I found nothing that indicated any wrongdoing. It made me question whether my concerns were justified or if I was simply being paranoid. Nevertheless, the nagging feeling persisted, leaving me torn between trusting Stefan and continuing to investigate for my own peace of mind. For days, I did not find anything and decided to give up on doubting the guy that I loved so much. Just then, I saw a message from his secretary about his upcoming meeting in a hotel. The name caught my eye. It was the same hotel whose invoice I found a few days ago. I quickly made a mental note of the date and time on it. 2 days later, I convinced myself that I should just be there at the hotel for my own mental peace. Just see for myself that there was nothing wrong so that I could stop all this that I was doing. I reached the hotel well in advance to avoid being caught by Stephen. I was waiting in the lobby, keeping an eye on everyone entering the hotel. I saw Stephen walk into the hotel and towards the reception. I was holding my breath, trying to calm myself down. I saw him pick a key and walk towards the elevators. I waited for him to get in and quickly followed behind him. I saw the floor he was going to and got into another lift. I reached floor 16 and was hoping that it should not be what I think it would be. I got off the elevator and saw Stephen closing the door of a room. I got the glance of a beautiful and young girl who hugged him and showed him inside. I froze in my tracks, not knowing what to do. Should I knock on the door? Should I just leave? I was sobbing hysterically, not knowing how to process this information. My head was spinning and I needed a break. I decided to go back to the lobby to collect myself. I was sitting in the restaurant below, sipping on a coffee and trying to understand what I just saw. Could it be just a business meeting? Did I see all the signs and still decided to ignore it? Yes, I know Stephen had been distant for a couple of days, but it could just be work-related stress, right? After I had my coffee, I decided that I needed to go and see for myself if there was something going on. I can't just sit here and keep speculating and filling my mind with garbage. I took a deep breath and took the elevator upstairs. I went to the room Stephen was seen entering into and knocked on it. I was still hoping that he had already left and nothing fishy was going on. I waited for the door to open. The girl opened the door and looked confused. The way she was dressed, or rather not dressed, concerned me. I just pushed her away and busted inside. I frantically started looking for Stephen. There he was, in bed completely naked. My heart sank as I realized that my worst fears had come true. Stephen's disheveled appearance and the unfamiliar girl standing by the door confirmed my suspicions. I couldn't help but confront him, demanding an explanation for his actions. He was obviously not expecting to see me there. He quickly dressed himself and escorted the girl to leave. My legs gave up and I was on the floor wailing. I had been in denial all this while. I never expected something like this to happen to me. The girl left and Stephen came up to me and started talking. My mind was so blanked out that I did not understand what he was saying. After a while, I got a hold of myself and looked at him with questioning eyes. I did not even find my voice to ask him anything. He started speaking, realizing that I was now listening to him. He told me that he had met Suzanne, the girl who was with him on a business trip. She was charming, beautiful, and young. He instantly was attracted to her. She was independent and confident. She started passing him flirty glances and engaging him in playful conversation. He couldn't help but feel a growing connection between them, as if they were kindred spirits. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and he found himself eagerly looking forward to their interactions throughout the trip. After the trip, he just couldn't get her out of his head. They started exchanging texts which slowly became more and more upfront and raunchy. They would get together whenever they could. First, it was only an intellectual attraction, but slowly physical attraction started to develop as well. Their conversations became filled with innuendos and flirtatious remarks, creating a palpable tension between them. They couldn't resist the magnetic pull they felt towards each other, eagerly anticipating the next opportunity to explore their newfound chemistry. They started meeting often, finding excuses to spend more time together, and indulging in playful banter that only fueled their attraction. The stolen glances and lingering touches became impossible to ignore, leaving them both wondering if this connection could lead to something more than just a casual flirtation. They discussed their thoughts in length, and she was the first one to say that she did not believe in being bound to just being a wife or a mother. She was ambitious and wanted to achieve great things in life. This instantly attracted him towards her, as this was one thing that was an issue between us lately. I kept listening to him blabbering about justifying his actions. I was amazed by the way he was giving me all the details, as if I was a friend listening to his love story. I was his bloody wife and he was not even being apologetic about cheating on me. He left me speechless with all this. I was stunned because I couldn't understand how he could be so indifferent to the suffering he had brought upon me. It felt as though he didn't value our connection at all. I gathered my courage to ask him how long this has been going on, and he told me that it has been almost a year since they have full-fledged started seeing each other. He told me that he did respect me and wanted me to agree to divorce him. He wanted to spend the rest of his life with her since they share the same beliefs and ambitions in life. After listening to all of his reasons for cheating on me, I was starting to doubt myself. Was I at fault here? Was I such a toxic wife that led him to cheat on me? These thoughts consumed my mind, making me question my worth and contribution to our relationship. However, deep down, I knew that no matter the circumstances, infidelity is a choice one makes and does not justify blaming myself entirely. How could Stephen be so shameless to put our relationship of the years down the bus and demand a divorce without taking any responsibility for his actions? It was clear that Stephen's decision to cheat on me was a reflection of his own character flaws and lack of commitment, rather than any shortcomings on my part. I realized that I deserved better than someone who would betray our trust so easily, and it was time to prioritize my own happiness and move on from this toxic relationship. There were 2 weeks left for our big event, and this could not be happening right now. No, no, no. I can't deal with this now. I don't want it to ruin my several months-long preparation for our 10-year anniversary. I had sent out the invites already. Everyone had RSVP'd themselves. I am not in a mental state to host this event. I had put so much effort into making this event perfect, from choosing the venue to planning the menu and entertainment. It feels overwhelming to think that all my hard work might go to waste because of this unexpected revelation. That is my story. I am now devastated and heartbroken with all that I had to deal with in the past few weeks. I need advice from you guys if I should go ahead with the event or just cancel everything. Please let me know your thoughts and opinions on this. Also, what should I do about my relationship with Stephen? Should I agree to his demands of a divorce and just move on with my life? I am so lost as I never thought that my life would turn out this way. Update. Stephen and I had mutually decided not to cancel the event as we had sent out invites to everyone across the globe. We couldn't just cancel everything 1 week before our anniversary and cause inconvenience to everyone. I wanted a distraction to get away from this reality crashing down on me. I needed this to give me time to process everything that was happening and find some solace amidst the chaos. So, we decided to go ahead with the event, hoping that it would provide a much-needed escape and allow us to momentarily forget about our troubles. For Stephen, it was more about his reputation. He could not cancel it and announced to the world that he had been cheating on his wife, and that is the reason for the celebrations to be canceled. It was sad to see that all Stephen cared about was his reputation, and not the heartbreak that I was going through. We had booked a cruise for 10 days, each day representing 1 year of us together. I know it sounds very cliche, but here we were, stuck on a ship with each other. We had to pretend to have the perfect marriage in front of all the people we had invited. There was one face, though, who knew that it was all an act. Yes, you guessed it right, Suzanne. I had warned Stephen that I would make a scene if she did not stay away from us, at least for this entire trip. This was an event I had been waiting for months, and I would not let anyone ruin it for me. I did not care what they did after we went back to our normal lives, but here, I wanted everything to be perfect, the way I planned it. After going through all your comments, I decided to follow your advice and not divorce my husband. If this is what he wants, then yes, I should not be giving it to him. The way they had been seeing each other for more than a year, making a fool out of me. It would be difficult for me to get out of my denial and accept it. Though I knew that our relationship was over, I still wanted to let my husband know that it was not as easy to dispose of me as he had expected. I wanted to remind him that I did not marry him for his money or the comfort that he provided me with. I had also been an independent woman when he met me. I wanted to give him a tough fight till the end. I denied all his demands for a mutual divorce. I knew that money was something that would not be a concern to him, but his reputation was something he cared about deeply. All his previous proposals for a divorce mentioned that I could keep all the property that I wished to, but sign an NDA in return. I replied back stating that divorce is something I wasn't looking forward to. I wanted to stay married to him even after his betrayal. I knew that it would be impossible for us to live under the same roof, but at the same time, I did not want to give him the satisfaction of living with another woman. I believed that by staying married, I could protect my reputation and prevent him from moving on so easily. I wanted him to know that he could not just cheat on me and walk away with any consequences. I continued living in the same house. I started making more and more appearances at work. I started looking into various aspects of business, making sure I attended all the important meetings, especially the ones that involved Suzanne being present. I wanted to make her realize that she was still a mistress and had no rights both on Stephen and on the company. It was going to be a power struggle between me and Suzanne. I could see Stephen being visibly uncomfortable with my presence, but there was nothing he could do. He could not deny that I was his wife, nor acknowledge that Suzanne was his girlfriend. I was enjoying his struggle with his relationship with Suzanne. I was an audience to their constant arguments involving me. It was giving me immense pleasure to see that Stephen and Suzanne were struggling to keep the peace in their relationship. I had my own agreement with Stephen carved out, which did not allow him to take any trips in my absence. He was to come home each and every single night after his work. He had to keep me happy at all costs so that I do not publicize his affair and lead to rumors about him and Susanna. I wanted him to regret his decision of cheating with me without being thoughtful of the consequences it would bring. He was now stuck between either saving his cute little fling or his reputation. On the other hand, Suzanne was getting more and more impatient with my gaining popularity at work. I was the one calling the shots. Everything had to be passed only after my approval. I was making things difficult for her at work. Stephen had advised her to stay away from our company for a while till things died down, and our divorce was finalized. I gave her a triumphant look as she exited the building. As Suzanne left, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction, knowing that I had successfully asserted my dominance in the workplace. I went back home and had a peaceful sleep that day. I had a sense of accomplishment with this small win after a long time. Stephen was waiting for me in the morning for breakfast. This was the first time in months that we would be having breakfast together. As we sat down, Stephen pushed a pile of papers for mutual consent to divorce. I took the papers and told him that I will get back to him after discussing with my lawyers. Stephen looked disappointed but nodded in understanding. The weight of the divorce papers hung heavy in the air, casting a shadow over our breakfast. It was clear that this decision marked the end of an era in our relationship, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and relief as I contemplated what lay ahead. I had realized in the past months that there was no happy ending to this relationship. The mere desperation from Stephen with regards to the divorce was constantly taking a toll on my mental health. I just needed a break from all this and wanted to gain new experiences in life. This was a lesson I learned that I need to give myself the utmost priority in life. I knew that going forward without Stephen would be a challenge for me, but I was glad that I found that piece of hotel invoice that completely changed my life. I still hope somewhere in the corner of my heart that Stephen gets the punishment that he deserves. I would be happy deep down if Stephen and Suzanne don't end up together, and Stephen regrets his decision of cheating on me. If not now, 6 months or 1 year down the line, he realizes what he lost was very precious and valuable. I hope he comes back crawling and begging to get back with me, and I should be living the best of my life at that moment. He should be the one telling me that Suzanne was a big mistake and that I was the one who truly understood him and stood by him. I should be the one declining his offer at the time, and that would be the best karma for all this episode of events. It would be a full circle. All of you, I would like to thank you all who have been with me through this painful journey. Do let me know what you think of my actions. I know that I have been acting mean and selfish all this while, but I hope you all understand that it was necessary. It was to protect my self-respect, and also for me to gain confidence in myself. I value your opinions and would appreciate any feedback you have on my actions. It hasn't been easy for me to navigate this journey, but I believe it was crucial for my personal growth and self-preservation. I hope you can empathize with my perspective and recognize the importance of prioritizing my own well-being.